Well, we're here still with Kevin Davis of Kevin Davis Insurance, working with insurance questions, following up to our older condos webinar, dealing with the unfortunate Champlain Tower South collapse. So, Kevin, let's talk about limits now. How does one set appropriate limits when dealing with liability claims?
Sure. That's the toughest part right now, because if you look at the property is what it is. If you have a $1 million property, you need $1 million from insurance. They will tell you exactly what you need. It's up to you to make sure you get the amount you should get. And if you decide not to get it, then there's consequences involved.
Right, and
Now,
you can get an appraiser to help you with figuring out what that number is.
exactly. Or the company will come itself and say, this is what the value is. You need to insure it up to value. So that's something that takes care of itself. The property is not an issue. The issue is always liability. How much liability do you need to make sure that you're protected? The Champlain Tower had a $15 million umbrella policy, okay? And he had 100 people, who passed away in that. That to me is not enough limits right there.
Yeah.
I would say this here. This is where if you live east of 95 on the East Coast, okay, and west of I-5 on the West Coast, you need lots of insurance coverage. And you live in, that's where most of the liability comes from. That's where most people will have more lawsuits, and the damages and awards are a lot higher. So if you think you need a $1 million limit, you need a $5 million limit. If you think you need a 5, you need a 10. Whatever you think you need to double it if you live in those areas there. Now, if you live in the middle there, I would say if you live in the Chicago, anywhere in a major city, you need higher limits. Get quotes on higher limits, and you decide based on the quotes. You can say, well, listen, $10 million is X number of dollars, 5 million is this, it's not much difference, I'll go for the 10 versus the 5. You have to have, and we're talking about an umbrella policy. Your general liability policy will usually be a $1 million or $2 million. You start there, and then you build upon there. You want to get more than one. You want to get more than two, because you figure if any drowning, okay, if you have a pool, if you have anything that people can really get hurt or damaged from, you have cars in and out of your complex. The more cars you have, the more chances of somebody getting hurt in the car. So the more exposure you have, the higher your limit should be. And to me, it's always based on the cost. This cost right here is too much. This one is okay. We can afford it. And then make the decision based on that. Because at the end of the day, if you have a $10 million loss from a drowning, or something happened to somebody hit by a car, and you buy a $2 million limit, and you don't have proof that you actually looked for it, now you're talking about, again, more exposure for yourself. You can look and make a decision. A business decision said, look, we thought about it, we looked at it, and a business decision said that we think that a $5 million limit should be adequate. And we went to our insurance agent. They said, most associations out there have a 5 million or less. We believe 5 million. And that way, when you're sued, the likelihood of you being defended, a defendable suit, not in terms of insurance, but just defend yourself, is greater.
Right.
So I would always say go for the limit, the most limit you can afford right now, especially if you live on any of the coasters where you know that you read the paper every single day. There's a $10 million judgment or $20 million judgment.
Yeah. That's fascinating about the two edges of the country that you're talking about.
Yes.
And also a little bit of what we heard from our legal expert, Adrian Adams, talking about make sure you're asking enough questions so you're not just guessing at decisions. You're reaching out and saying, what is typical? What is normal? What are other associations doing? So you have a defensible position. I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you said about not only just getting the insurance coverage, but once you get it, it's probably not a lot more cost to double or significantly increase. And that may be some of your money best spent.
And because what happens is you never know. Again, that building went down is an anomaly. Okay. We hope it never happens again, but balconies do collapse, roofs cave in. There are certain things that happen that can cause a significant loss. There's drownings that happen that people will look and say, okay, we want to give this person more than we ever thought before. There's things happening out there now that we're seeing, something called social inflation. Okay, and social inflation is where there are historical losses that you get that used to be 10,000, now it's 100,000, or it used to be 2 million, now it's 10 million, now it's 10 million, now $100 million. So you're seeing these judgments and awards are greater than they ever have been before because something called social inflation, where all these cases now are inflated significantly than they have been in the past. So you need higher limits now than you ever needed before because the awards are greater. And a lot of reasons for it. And one reason they talk about the millennials are now old enough to look at things and say, wait a minute, we want to hold these people more accountable. We're not going to give them X number of dollars. We're going to give them more than they had before because we believe they were wrong. And the millennials look at the world a little bit differently to the point where they'll say, we want to hold you accountable more so than, well, we think they deserve $5 million. No, we're going to penalize you. So the reasons why we're starting to see more and more claims of higher amounts than we've seen in the past.
Well, we talked about getting more insurance coverage. What if you don't have a high enough liability limit? What happens if you are sued in excess of your liability limit?
Yeah, and that's what's happening right now in Florida with Champaign Towers, and there's no more limit available. I mean, every limit that was out there, the carrier said, "Here's my policy limit. I'm giving you out. We don't have anything left now." So now all of a sudden you have all these people who live there, the board of directors. If they are being sued now, they are in trouble because they don't have any coverage they can go to. So they have to make sure that, and it goes back to our original talk about deferred maintenance. If you make sure that you are budgeting, you have a reserve study, you budget for the reserve study, you put money away and you spend it, then some of these conversations we're having right now won't be had. Yeah. And a lot of times what we're seeing right now are things that are uninsurable that they can be taken care of with just maintenance, with make sure they do the job that they should be doing that they're elected to do.
Interesting. Okay, so you don't want to get stuck in a situation where your coverage is inadequate, because then once the carrier has paid the max, then you're kind of out there by yourself. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not only paid the max, but they could have paid, let's say they had $15 million. $15 million umbrella is not enough if 100 people were dead. It's just not enough. Yeah. So once that 15 million is done, then you're looking at how do you collect more money from, you're filing bankruptcy, you're trying to maybe get a loan, you're trying to do certain things, but you're stuck. And what you're stuck with is years and years and years of just weight on your shoulders of being held responsible for something because of no insurance. Insurance right now, what it does is peace of mind insurance. If you talk about directors and officers, general liability, or umbrella, those are the ones that protect you. So when you're sued and you look around and going, don't worry about it, we have protection for you. We are defending you, okay? And then you can say, okay, I have defense. And we have $15, $20 million. Wow, that's a lot of money to defend me for a very long time. As opposed to $1 million or $2 million, when you go, that's not gonna last a long time at all these days.
Yeah, that sounds like a great position to be in where you have peace of mind. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. That's just, again, some tremendous insights that were exactly what we were looking for.
Mm-hmm.